We might be live already. It always goes live before you think that we're going live. So I'm just going to wait for it. Here we go. I'm going to wait for it to propagate on YouTube, and then I need to just mute. There we are. Lovely. We are live. Hello, guys. Welcome to the show. I've got the beautiful Waxela Sananda with us today. Welcome, Waxela.
Thank you, Karen.
And we're going to have a live chat about her life and her ascension journey and the Alchemy of Ascension that's happening, that's coming up. So I'm going to try something new today. So stay tuned. We are about to chat about that. Here we go.
You got to accentuate the positive. Wow, I feel good. A little bit of feel good goes a long way.
You're listening to Karen Swain, teacher of deliberate creation, accentuating the positive, showing you a way to a better life.
Accentuating the positive, it's not just fad, it's sanity. Who in their right mind would accentuate anything else?
If you feel like that's what you want to do.
Woohoo! Never done that before. Did you see that? I got the intro on a live show. Woohoo! Yeah, playing around with technology. Let me tell you a little bit about wa-shay-la. Wa-shay-la has been a lifelong extra-dimensional contactee and holds memories from multiple Earth and star race incarnations. Today, she is a Galactic Shaman, Embodied Ascension Trainer, conscious life mentor, activating people's spiritual gifts and abilities, author, and conscious light channel, assisting in the activation of people's spiritual abilities and soul codes. She's also the host of the Alchemy of Ascension Summit and podcast, combining celestial starseed consciousness and shamanic training. Waxela holds space for humanity to experience the embodiment of divine frequencies. Her mission is to support the ascension of Earth and humanity, assisting you in achieving greater levels of consciousness, upliftment, and inner peace. And yeah, we're here to chat about the Alchemy of Ascension Summit, which is coming up like now, isn't it? Today?
Tomorrow, yeah. Well, for me, it's tomorrow morning. For you, it's probably tonight.
Right. Yeah, today for me, tomorrow for you. And but I first want to hear a little bit about your story before we go into that, because you've shared a little bit with me when I've chatted with you, and it's a fascinating story. How did this all begin for you? How did you know that you were connecting with extra dimensional beings and races and remember your star lineage?
Yeah, well, it goes all the way back to early childhood. I think I was about 3 years old. My first really clear memory of being visited at night. I was raised in rural Iowa. It's the middle of the United States, but really kind of the middle of the cornfields. Not a lot going on there. And I was on a house on the second story on the top of a hill. That's where my bedroom was. So I knew even at the young age of 3 years old that having a light at my window at night was strange. Even if there was a car coming, which was rare, it wouldn't shine in my window. And so that was the first experience that I remember, where I was visited by a being who came in and put me in sort of like a chamber or a pod, where it was really electrical and the energy was really intense, and it really freaked me out. And some things happened there, and I eventually, it felt like pins and needles, like prickling, and I was stuck to the side of my bed because I was thrashing around, but I was like, I couldn't scream, and I was stuck. And then suddenly the whole thing went away. I fell to the floor. I stood up, and I heard in my mind, "Don't tell the adults, they won't understand." And I got back in bed, and I never did tell the adults until I was an adult, many, many, many years later. And so that was my sort of opening experience that I recall. That was actually, I got to many years later do a QHHT session, quantum hypnosis, where I went back to that time, and I got to interview that being that came in my window and ask, what is happening here? Because in my 3-year-old memory, I had no idea what was really going on. And I was inside sort of like at this electrical chamber with a silver cord going out the window, which I was told was connecting me to a galactic council. This was a galactic council of 12 different star races. And each of those 12 races is connected to an additional 12 races. So one representative would represent 12 races. That's a lot of races. And that I was actually a member of this group of 12, and that I came here to somewhat sort of like be a reporter, but also with a mission to, uplift humanity, to assist in this ascension process, and to report back and forth, both sending and receiving information with this council to assist in the process. So that was that one. And then it didn't end there. Obviously, I had many, many experiences throughout the years. But the big one was, I always, and I've always felt like my twin flame was meant to be here with me. And what happened was my twin flame didn't get a body. He was spontaneously aborted 13 times. The energy was not compatible to be carried by a woman on the earth. So he didn't find a host, mother. But when I was in my early 20s, I had a shop in Dallas, Texas. I was living in Dallas, and I was hearing from all of my different friends, there's this shaman in town. You've got to meet him. He reminds us of you. And one day I came home from work and he was at my neighbor's, and the neighbors came and got me, said, you got to meet this guy. In the meantime, I had been arranging my life to go to Kauai, Hawaii for a vacation, because I kept getting these hints. People would walk by and talk about Kauai. So one day I came into work, and there on my desk was a book about Kauai. And I'm like, who put this here even? I went home from work one day. There's a magazine with the Nepali Coast Trail in Kauai on the table. And I'm like, wow. So it was coming from every angle. I'm like, I'm going to Kauai. That's clear. And then I met the shaman, and we had a long conversation. At the end of the conversation, he said, I'm going to Kauai and I want you to come with me. And I said, you know what? I'm coming. I already have already set my life up to be able to do that. So this 3-month trip, which I thought was going to be 3 months, ended up being 3 years. And he was actually a walk-in. He was a temporary walk-in of my twin flame that got to be in this body, which was severe. The body was compromised. The person was in a severe breakdown, and he needed to go heal. And so during the interim, my twin flame got to come and be with me and train me in Galactic Shamanism. And we had so much magic during those 3 years. It was just a very powerful time. And that's where much of my galactic training came from.
Ah, beautiful. Okay, a couple of questions. What is the difference between galactic shamanism and shamanism? And I've got another question. I'll just say it now, but remind me to ask it again later. He, or the consciousness that is your twin flame, walked into a body, taught for a period of years, and then left, right? And
Yes.
then that consciousness left that body. Who inhabited the body after that consciousness left? Anyway, that's the second question. Sorry.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
The natal.
Yeah, I'll start with that one. That's fine.
Okay.
The natal of the body. So and Sheila Seppi, who's actually tomorrow being released, she wrote the book literally on walk-ins, and she calls it the natal, the original owner of the body. There are many different ways to be walk-ins, which it's fascinating. So the natal was severely compromised, left. He even told me he remembered going to the other side and being sort of like seeing, his life review, and then just being in a holding space. In the meantime, in walks my twin, found me, took me, we went across the US first, did this training, but when the body was recovered enough, when it was well enough, he had to go and the natal came back. Now, during the interim, there was a braid, and a braid is when both consciousnesses are there in the body. And I would say even throughout the process, sometimes that braid showed up. But for the most part, while I was with him, it was my twin. And then it occurred to me as if he just left. And I was so confused at the time. I didn't understand what had happened. It wasn't until several years later, my guidance showed me from their perspective, here's how it all played out. And it made so much sense to me. Then I'm like, oh, okay, now I get it. So the natal also got some special gifts from having that happen. He not only got his body healed and back, but he did get to retain some of the gifts or the abilities of the higher dimensional spirit that he hosted, but not all of them. So that's that question. And then what is the difference between a galactic shaman and an earth shaman? The difference there, they're both, shaman is a medicine person, a person who brings medicine and healing, right? And I was trained in what we might call more native shamanism. So this shaman that I traveled with, his mentor was a Lakota medicine woman. We did stay with her for a period of time, and she did train me as well. But she was also very galactic, and she was also a walk-in. So there was always this crossover. For me, the galactic part is that I am communicating and bringing the medicine of the galactics onto this planet. So the frequencies of the galactics, the medicine of the galactics, I work with them, I channel them, I share their frequencies, and I'm just calling it medicine. It's not like plant medicine. Whereas earth medicine or earth shamanism, you're working more closely with the plants and animals and the species of the planet. I'm working more with off-planet. However, there's a lot of crossover because Native American and all of the different native shaman also work with galactics. So for me, it's just a way to kind of differentiate. I might not do things the way that the native shaman do. I'm more galactic in my style and the way that I deliver. However, there does tend to be a lot of crossover, and they're all about changing dimensions, changing frequencies, interacting with beings that are of higher dimensional expressions, working with shadow. There's a lot of working with shadow in the work that I do. And so all of those are similarities.
Absolutely. Yeah, the shamans have always worked with the Star Nation people. It just hasn't been revealed until now, really. I mean, it's revealed amongst themselves, like the Indigenous of Australia have been working, they're seeded by the Palladians. They've been working with the Palladians for years, but they don't kind of talk about it to the Western mind that is so closed, right? But within their own communities, they talk about it. They talk about the, people from the sky and the sky gods, and it's all very out there and open. I just want to say hi to Taran. Taran's watching us live. He says it's so lovely to watch us live. Hi, Taran. He's got a great show. You might want to be on Taran's show. Hopefully he's still got a show. Okay, so well, what I see in you, Waxela, is your determination and passion to really expand this work in the world. Like you've really kind of taken a hold of it with gusto and are really getting it out there. And it's great to see that passion and determination. How did you gain that? Because, talking about this stuff, my flatmate was just here. I just said goodbye to her before we came on. Her and her family and the community at large, they don't get it. If I'm sitting here thinking, if she was listening to this conversation we're having about walk-ins and braided soul, she'd be like, oh, those two are totally crazy. So that's the mainstream narrative, right? How did you get over being judged by the mainstream narrative and just move fearlessly forward in this work?
Oh, I love this question. So I'll tell you, I hid this for so many years, my entire childhood, my young adulthood. And then I started breaking through around the age of 19, 20. Just started really awakening. My psychic gifts were coming on board, and I couldn't stop it's like, like a roller coaster or a freight train when you really get going, the momentum. I couldn't really stop that. However, there were still things I wasn't telling my parents and my relatives and my, my people from Iowa. I just thought that they would think I was nuts, right? So I was still holding back when I went home and with my family and friends. But then, like at some point, I guess it was when I decided to write my book several years ago. Of course, I spent a year writing it, and then there's the publishing. So it was published 2 years ago, but the process started maybe 5 years ago. That's when I'm like, okay, I'm really making a choice now to be 100% out to everybody because I'm publishing a book, right? And there's a lot of stories in there. There's no more holding back. This is going to be this is just who I am. And in doing that, number one, it was terrifying because even just the thought of my parents, like really reading, like really knowing, they already knew, they already knew these things were going on. But in my mind, it was still like, oh my gosh, how are they going to react? Fine, actually, is the answer. But you don't know until you do it. And then the more I put it out there, the more my community has shown up. And what it's really taught me, the more I niche in to the star seeds and the walk-ins and the galactic stuff, the more I get to serve people. And these are the people that are like me when I was a kid and I had nobody to talk to except my galactic friends. I just didn't know what to do with it and myself. And now I get to share it and hopefully take a step in the direction of making it normal or making it just commonplace to talk about your awakenings and your starseed origins. And, if you're a walk-in, all of that, the information that goes along with that. And that is such a joy to me that it's really become part of my message is that whoever you are and whatever you think is unacceptable about you or the thing that you can't talk about, that's the thing that you're going to be served. You're going to serve others and you'll attract your tribe by speaking about it and sharing about it. And it's so powerful to just let all those secrets out and share. And so that's really it was a process, but I got there.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I, as I said to you, I was at a funeral this week and I'm surrounded by people that I grew up with, absolutely conservative Catholic community. And they were asking me about, what I'm doing. Do you still have your podcast show? Yes, I still have my podcast show. And I was thinking, God, if they knew what we talked about, they would just... they would just not understand. And then the other thought I had is future will show that what the crazy ones, in their minds are talking about today was absolutely cutting edge, leading edge, is the future, is the now, but is, moving us into a future time where we'll all understand this. Many of the people I spoke to will be long gone because there was an older crowd because it was someone who was in her 90s that died. But the future will show that what's crazy today is truth tomorrow, which is happening quite fast now, don't you think, Waxela?
It really is. This is the ascension, and the ascension is the speeding up of all of it, of the light, of the shadow surfacing, of our spiritual gifts and intuitive abilities coming online. There's more light. It's also anytime we level up in light, whatever's in the way of that light has to come up. That's the shadow work. So we're seeing that in a collective global way happening massively right now. But yes, the speed up and the ascension is absolutely in full speed.
Absolutely. So what made you reach out to share other people's stories? So you've got your podcast show and you've got the summit, the Alchemy of Ascension Summit, where you are doing what I'm doing and sharing other people's stories and their teachings, and not just make it all about what you've got to teach. Because like me, you've got a lot to say, right? You've got a lot to teach, and yet you have reached out to share other people's teachings.
Yeah. And that's a great question. And I love this because, as I was choosing really to be in this work and make this, put up my public website, all that stuff, I'm researching other people and I'm looking at other people that are doing this type of thing. And I'm like, oh, wow, that looks like a really interesting person. Oh, look what she's up to. That's it. Look at that interesting, and all these people. I'm like, these are my people. I need to know these people, and I'm like, how could that happen? And then I realized, interviewing them, collaborating with people is how we're going to get to know each other. And so when I started the Alchemy of Ascension Summit series, which later became a podcast as well, I was desiring, I wanted to break free from the competitive model. It's like, I see someone amazing online. I don't want to compete with that person. I'd rather collaborate with that person. And so to invite, and like, well, they don't know I exist, so they're not going to invite me in their world. So if I see someone I'm interested in knowing, then I get to invite them into my world and create a platform where you get to be heard and share, what you're up to in your work. And then we get to know each other. And I can't tell you how many friendships and connections and collaborations have come from this work. It's amazing what has happened, so much more than I ever expected. And it's just wonderful to be in an experience of collaboration. And then naturally what happens is I'm getting invited on other people's shows and I get to speak as well. I'm certainly not lacking in being able to share my stories.
Yeah. Look, absolutely, darling one. I've been doing this I've been doing it for about 25 years, but on radio and podcasting for about 12 years. And there's a fine line between being lost as the interviewer and also being seen as the teacher. So something I've thought about for a long time. So I used to think about, Oprah. So she was classically the interviewer. This is the sort of what we've grown up with. And yet she is also seen as the teacher in her own right, even though she interviewed. So I actually think you do it really well, much better than me, because in the past, I just got lost as the interviewer. Everybody saw me as the interviewer and sort of forget. So I honor you because Waxela has put me in her summit to do some teaching. And I can't even remember, we had a recording not long ago and I can't even remember what I said. Anyway, so I honor you for putting me on your platform. And now I'm sharing you on my platform. Let's talk about the summit, shall we? Is there anything else you want to say about your upbringing or experiences? Any other experiences you want to share?
Well, I mean, there have been so many. I think, yes, there's something that I think could really be of service to people. I want to say that so many of the beings that I met along, that I've seen along the journey, many of them manifest physically, some I see in my mind's eye, but I used to be terrified of them. And they would show up always at night, always in my bedroom. And I learned a technique where I was able to, and this was taught to me by Cynthia Crawford, who she's deceased now, but she was a hybrid and a very well-known spokesperson for hybrids. She was genetically modified, for lack of a better term, but she was an experiencer and she loved the ET races so much. And she taught me how to connect my heart to whoever showed up. And it's not something you can do when you're already in fear, because you can't just go from fear to love. But if you practice during the daytime, just practice loving whatever shows up and imagine, something showing up and connecting to it. So she taught me whatever shows up to open your heart, just send love, And if it's a negative entity or negative being, it will be uncomfortable and it will go away. It won't be able to handle that love vibration. If it's benevolent, if it's positive, it will receive that love and send it back to you. And you'll feel great in their presence. And so once I learned that and I used it, I never had negative experiences again. And I wasn't afraid anymore. And it transformed my whole relationship with the galactics that would show up physically. So I encourage anyone to try that. And what a beautiful practice. Just love anything that shows up. And if they're of love, they'll give it back. And if they're not, they'll disappear.
Absolutely. Just love, just love, just love, just love, just love. There's nothing to be, there's the, fear, false evidence appearing real. There's nothing to fear because love is the only force in the universe. And a fear is an experience, but it's not the truth. And yeah, if you're in love, if you're sending love, you can only be a vibrational match to a similar. That's what everyone's scared about. They're scared of attracting negative entities or negative attachments or evil aliens. Everyone, the human race is so marinating in fear that you put this ascension work out into the world and everyone covers it in their fear. But if you're vibing at a rate of love vibration, you can only attract similar frequencies from wherever, cosmos, whatever dimension. Yeah, great. That's fantastic. Thanks, Waxela. And so let me bring up, shall we talk, do you want to talk about the summit now?
Absolutely.
Let me
go ahead.
Yeah, go. I was just going to share. Let me share my screen. I was just going to share the I've got to find my where is it? Yeah, there we go. Can you see them? So they're the people that are speaking. Can you see that?
Yes, I can see it.
Yeah. Do you want to talk about some of the people and what they're talking about? And
yes, absolutely. Oh my gosh, it's been such an amazing season. It's just been so incredible. All of these people with their stories of star seeds and galactics and walk-ins, but also, other things, their personal experiences and their overcoming and their ascension processes and even love and ascended love. So it's called the Alchemy of Ascension Season 5, and it's all about activating star seeds, walk-ins, and the new human of the golden age, and also DNA, which was kind of a surprise. So many of the speakers brought in DNA as the multidimensional Stargate portal, and fascinating information from so many different people that became one of the foundational things kind of unintentionally of the summit. So just so people know, this is a free show. It's all free. It's sent by email each day from March 4th to March 18th. And there will be 2 speakers sent out per day, and they're not live. So you have 48 hours to watch the interviews, visit the speaker pages. Everybody's giving away amazing free gifts. There are many special offers, incredible, generous offers that you can take advantage of, or you can watch everything and just get the free gifts and not spend a penny, whatever you want to do. So I'll just share from some of the interviews we have on the upper left. That's Marilyn Harper and Joy Roby, and Marilyn channels Adironda, and they're both walk-ins. Interestingly, both Marilyn and Joy are walk-ins. And so they shared about their walk-in experiences. And then Marilyn channeled Adironda with this powerful, it's so interesting to watch her because she starts out just seemingly normal, regular person. And then when Adironda comes through, she has these blue eyes that just beam and her whole voice and demeanor changes. And it's just fascinating to listen to. Super high information came through with her. I mentioned Sheila Seppi. She talks about all of the different types of walk-ins and her own walk-in experience. Alan Steinfeld, who I know you're familiar with, and he talks about just a lot of things, but his newest book is something that he shares about, and he's always just such a joy to be with and such a connector, and had a really fun conversation.
Making contact. Yeah, he talks about it, making contact. I can never forget the name of it because every time I see him, he's like making contact. Yeah, go on.
Yeah. And he's all about, UFO disclosure, and, he's been the MC of the, what's it called? Contact in the Desert for many years. We have Brian Scott from Reality Revolution. He's just fascinating. He has a wonderful YouTube channel where he shares so much, but we talk about like changing timelines and, some really fun stuff with him. I'm just going to kind of bounce around. Celia Fenn, she's another galactic shaman, and she did kind of some updates of what's going on right now on the planet, which is always interesting. We have Daniel Scranton. He channels ninth dimensional Arcturian frequencies. During his channeling, my sound blew out somehow from the frequencies that came through. So the interview ended early, but I figured out what happened later when I listened back and found out I had no sound. And gosh, so many. We've got Light Star. She does 20 different light languages. She shares a few of them in the interview. Celestine Star. Wow, she's just got powerful stuff and talks about what's going on right now on the planet as well. Of course, we have you, Karen, and I enjoyed you. You were you shared just a lot of your personal kind of energy. Like I almost felt like with you, it was more of an energetic transmission than something specific teaching.
It's so funny because I don't even remember what I said. I really don't remember, because you said, will you be channeling? And I said, I pretty much channel the whole time. But it's interesting when you're in that channeling phase, when you think back to what you said, like when I'm back in my normal, like, working with, having to think alpha brainwave, I don't remember anything I said. Yeah.
I totally know. I know what you mean, because I do that too. No, I do feel like you went in, it was almost more of an energetic transmission in some ways. I mean, you shared, you spoke, but it wasn't like you told a specific story.
It wasn't very galactic in the conversation, but the guides that speak through me speak specifically about how to, focus our energy, tune our energy, think in a way that, flows our energy towards what we want and not what we don't want. And they have that very strong message. But you mentioned DNA to me. What are you saying about DNA? Because everyone's talking about DNA. Let's talk about that. We'll talk about that in a minute. But who's the guy in this? Let me share my screen again. Who is the guy that is next to me with the glasses? He looks interesting. Let's share my screen again. Where am I? Am I here? Yeah. Can you, that guy in the
yeah. That's Mark Atwood. He has the Mark Atwood Show on YouTube and also on Telegram. He's very prolific on Telegram. Okay. Now he gets into some conspiracy theories. Okay. He doesn't really share about that, but he's all about raising consciousness and ascension and bringing awareness to what's going on, opening people's minds to what's happening behind the scenes, behind the narratives that we're being told. He's also a comedian. He's a poet. He shares a production that he made of poetry, and it's sort of theatrical, but also very deep content. And he's fascinating. I really, really enjoyed my conversation with Mark. So he's definitely one to watch and not to miss. Of course, they all are.
And who's the smiley girl up in the corner?
Yes, that's Anastasia Frank. She does love and relationships. And we talked about ascended love. Her show is called The Healthy Love Show. Okay. And she's a love and relationship coach, but really it goes to self-love. It's the number one thing. That conversation was beautiful. Everything she said, everything she shared was actionable and relevant to all people, whether you're galactic or starseed or not, whether you're just a regular person, it was relevant to, I feel like, everyone, and a beautiful conversation. She's amazing.
Yeah, there's some great looking people there, there's but lots of people I know that I've had on the show and lots of people I haven't. So you've put together a great crowd, and this is season 5. So you've done it 5 times.
Yes. Yeah. And 29 people on this show. So it really got larger than I even expected. And I could have kept going. I have like 6 more people that are like, can I be on your show? But I'm like, next season I'm at capacity. But it's a beautiful lineup, and I'm so proud of this season and really all of them. But this one, I really niched into my favorite topics, which are starseeds, walk-ins, and the new human and the golden age. So I feel like because it's something I'm so passionate about, that it naturally attracted so many wonderful speakers to share about those topics.
Yeah, I just want to say there's Michelle's online. Hi, Michelle. There's a few people I know listening online. What was I going to say? So let's get back to did you learn something about DNA? I mean, as somebody like you and I that are doing this work, it's rare that you learn something because you already know, but it's great when you do, right? You go, wow, I didn't know that before. Like, you get some aha moments. Did you get some aha moments? Because you said everyone was talking about DNA.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like all of us, I've studied a lot about the DNA, and I also approach every conversation where there's something for me to learn here. There's not just something for everyone else to learn, something for me here as well. And I consider it, I'm digging for gold. So I'm asking questions, I'm digging in. I rarely have pre-written questions, just because I want to listen for the gold and go into what comes up. And so in the DNA conversation, what was fascinating to me is all of these different people having their different perspectives and ideas about what the DNA is and what it represents. And yet they're all right in their own way. And it's not like one's right and the other's wrong, but several talked about DNA as a multidimensional portal. And as we're ascending and as we're bringing more light into our bodies, and as the earth is ascending, our DNA strands are activating. And as they're activating, we have access to higher and higher realms of consciousness, to higher dimensions of reality, as we give ourselves and our DNA permission to go there. And a lot of this is permission based. We're not just going to we're not just going to land in a different dimension usually without wanting that or doing that work or pursuing our own ascension process. So it's not like something that's forced upon us for most people. I mean, once in a while, someone has an awakening experience or a Kundalini experience that can be overwhelming. But again, they probably have done some work to get there. In the rare occasion, it's just a sudden expansion. But as you know, it gives us the power to know that as we're upgrading and as we're doing this spiritual work, as we're doing our internal work, we are activating our DNA, and our strands are coming online, bringing us new information, new gifts, new light, new abilities to hold light and step up in our path and in our process. And so one of the fascinating conversations was with Dr. John Ryan. He does the Syrian Blue White Collective, and he talked about I believe it was the Earth Mothers, I think the Pleiadian Earth Mothers, who originally seeded this planet, and they came from the Pleiades. And I'm paraphrasing. I'm obviously not going to share it like as well as he does, but they were really the mothers, the four founders and the mothers of everyone here, and the star seeds, and really helped upgrade the DNA of our species. And so many people talk about the galactic hybridization, that we are as humanity, we are hybrid of so many different star races. It's not that we were just, humans. Oh, and that's something Celia Fenn talks about too. She called us the Homo Christos. She's like, we're not really Homo sapiens anymore. As we ascend and activate, now we're Homo Christos or something like that. And I loved that term. So, all of these different perspectives, but they're all sort of coming together and sharing. We are an embodiment of divine light, of all different galactic races, and we're all ascending together, and we all have these gifts. And here are many of the ways that we can activate ourselves to a new level. I truly believe that anybody who tunes in and listens to all of these, 29 conversations, you will be in a whole new place by the time you're done.
Absolutely, wa-shay-la. Absolutely. I totally agree with you. I am learning all the time. Like, I'm 60 this year, and you think you know something, and then there's just more and more and more stuff opens, and it's so fascinating, isn't it? It's just so fascinating. I learned so much from people too. And I had a woman on the show from South Africa this week, who knew a woman who lived she died in the early 90s, in her 80s, who was from Alpha Centaurus, from the Venus race, who were originally Palladian seeded, but they were part of the race that seeded humanity. They built the pyramids. And what I learned through exploring her story is this race is active along with the Federation of Worlds, but they are actively helping humanity in so many ways, just in the solar system. Like they're stopping a lot of the coronal masses from the sun, destroying the planets in our solar system, not just Earth, but the rest of them, because Venus millions of years ago was destroyed by a coronal ejection, and they moved off Venus into the Alpha Centauri system. But they're actively, so here we are, these little humans going to our funerals and worrying about pandemics and living on this world and not realizing that there's this massive galactic consortium of beings that are actively protecting us right now. Yeah, it's amazing to think about that, isn't it?
Yeah, it really is. We have so much help. We have so much help available to us. And if we want that support from the galactics, all we then need to do is ask. But we do need to ask. And many of the angelic races, the galactics, they won't actually come in and work with us if we don't ask, because they respect our free will and they don't want to, push themselves on us in most cases. But if we ask and open to them, then they are more than happy to come and work with us.
And they've got so much to share with us about their society, about how to structure their society. And what you were saying about, it's not about competition, it's about collaboration. I'm seeing that more and more now with podcast shows, because I've been collaborating with other people's podcast shows for years. And up until this year, this year, I had not seen anybody else doing it. And now I'm seeing everyone like Portal to Ascension and Sheila Seppi and you guys and Aaron and Abke and everyone collaborating. And I'm like, yes, it's so great. Like we're in this together. It's not about your show versus my show. It's about us in this story, in this conversation together. It's so exciting. Yeah. I just asked the YouTube tribe if they have any questions. Eris says, hi, Eris. She says, y'all, I love this. Y'all both so awesome. How wonderful.
Is she Texan?
I think so.
I spent a lot of time in Texas, a lot of my adult life in both Dallas and Austin. And my daughter goes to UT in Austin. And my son was born in Austin. So
it's 11:11 here in Sydney, Australia. It just turned 11:12, but as you were talking, it was 11:11. And she says, I just now found her and was watching one of her videos. I think you, when this popped up, Cosmic Wink, she says, love this conversation. Anyway, people are enjoying our conversation, but they're not actually asking any questions. I thought people might have some questions for us. I will put the link to the Alchemy of Ascension, because I've got a link that shows wa-shay-la that you came through me, which I haven't actually popped underneath the YouTube as yet, not that organized this morning, so that people can sign up to receive all these galactic amazing conversations.
And it's all free. You click the link, you put in your name and your email, and it's sent out by email. So check your email every day. You'll get 2 speakers per day in one email. And that's from March 4th tomorrow all the way through the 18th. And it's just fascinating. So be sure and register right away so that you get all of them. You don't want to miss anybody.
Yeah. Because I remember you asked me about the DNA, and which was a great question, because I've been chatting to my guides. I had a question like, how is the veil constructed, was my question, right? How can we be these incredibly infinite consciousness beings, squeeze ourselves into a physical body and not remember who we are? Like, how does that work? Which is a question that I have been asking for years. And I don't think I had the expanded consciousness to understand, but I've been getting drips of info, and they've showed me that it's all within the design of the DNA. As we hold this physical structure, and the DNA is also a part of the etheric and the astral and the other dimensional structures, because they're also worlds beyond who we are as a spiritual being, as a spirit. You're still like an astral is a body. It's like another body we take on. A physical is another body. It's all the DNA. Anyway, and it was amazing. I don't remember what I said on your show about it, but it was a question that I've been asking for ages. Like, how could we forget who we are? And it's all in the design of the DNA. Yeah. So, I'm excited to hear what other people are saying about the DNA, because to me, it's fascinating anyway. I don't know. Do you find it fascinating, Tony?
I absolutely do. And, that's all about the descension. And we
Right.
descend from oneness and from super high levels of consciousness. And we come down and have this experience and work our way back up. And that's the game we're playing. Phil Gruber, are you familiar with him?
Absolutely. I met Phil 20 years ago in Sydney. He was in Sydney. Yeah. But he's doing heaps. But go on here. Yeah.
He was on, I actually just did his interview today. So he's fascinating, but he talks about the DNA, how when we come through as souls, we come to the earth, we must go through the earth's core. And there's an imprint made of our DNA as we travel through the earth's core into our incarnation as, as a newly conceived being. And what's amazing about that is now there are so many higher dimensional beings that are incarnating. We can have more of them here now as the earth is ascending because of the frequency, she can hold more. And so all of those beings are imprinting their DNA through the core of the earth. And so everyone that comes through is picking up some of that imprint, which is part of how our species is evolving. And I find that fascinating.
Absolutely. That is fascinating. So just before we go, I'd love to hear how who your galactic, do you have memory of being on other worlds? And because I have memory, and not good memory, very shadowed memory, but I'd love to hear about your memories in a future world, on another dimension, in another planet, like who you are, what you're doing.
Sure. Yeah. I have a lot of memories. Like futuristically, it's something kind of interesting is when I see myself in Egypt, what we think of as ancient Egypt, I actually see it as future Egypt or higher dimensional Egypt. And when we check into like our future selves are our higher dimensional selves, because it's all happening simultaneously. We are ascending to higher levels of reality. So those future selves are incarnations of ourselves in what from this perspective occurs as the future. So some of my incarnations that I have wonderful memories of is Sirius B. That's my quote unquote home planet. It's the water world, and it has purple horizons. And I have been mer there many, many times, and mer beings, mermaid, mermen, and not just that, but dolphins and whales and sea turtles. But my longest incarnation that I remember, that which incarnation is kind of a stretch, I was light codes in the water, and I considered myself to be a light courier. And what I would do is like rainbow colored light. I would pass through the crystal structures were where the mer people live, and they are conscious. The crystal is conscious. The places hold frequency and energy and consciousness. So as light, I would pass in and receive some information, and then I would understand where it was to be taken. And so I would take it. Let's say a sea turtle needed some sort of upgrade or information. I would go, deliver these codes or this information to a sea turtle or a whale or other mer people in a different city. And I was light in water, and that's what I did. I was conscious. I was aware. And I had a job to do and a mission, but I did that for a very long time. And it was fun. I enjoyed it. And then, other lifetimes that I have strong memories of are being like a much less dense body with sort of periwinkle skin and long elongated head, but not like the grays. And we would float together in groups of 8 and consciously create together whatever experiences we wanted to have. We wanted to have a child, we would consciously create that baby together. And then, when we had enough of them, they'd find other pods and go join their own circle of 8. And we would, instead of eating food, we absorbed nutrients through our skin and things like that. So, there've been a lot of different interesting galactic experiences that I've tapped into the memories of.
I know, it's so vast, isn't it? It's so vast what we can play with in the cosmos. So vast. When I hear people, because I've just been to a funeral, when I hear people say rest in peace, I always think they ain't resting. They're now exploring the vastness of experience that is available to a soul or a point of consciousness. Like, okay, I've just had this human life. What else can I explore? You know, I can explore more human lives in all in all time and space, or I can be like, you know, what did you say? What did you say you were? Like ripples of
light coats in water. Yeah.
Right. You can explore being a solar system, a planet, a rock, a mountain, a tree. Like, it's just infinite. It's just so expansive. Beautiful. Thank you for sharing those memories. I so relate to your MERP. I'm absolutely in love with the ocean. Like, she is my mother. If I don't see her every day or look at her like water, and so I've definitely got a life in her, like in that matrix of the ocean, as a whale or a something, or a mer person. I don't know, but yeah, I so relate to that Sirius B. And you know, the book that I was talking about on the last show, Beyond the Light Barrier, written by this South African woman, she goes and spends 4 months on Meton in the Alpha Centauri system in their utopian society, and she speaks about it as a human, you know, as a human society, that the way that they live in this utopian off-world society, and no money, no roads, obviously spaceship, anti-gravitic technology. So the technology and the way they commune with nature and are one with nature, all vegan, vegetarian, of course, and the natural fibers that they wear. It's so beautiful to hear how human societies can live, you know, to imagine bringing that into this world, to imagine that peaceful, expanded, highly evolved society on this world, to me anyway, because we're also focused on the problems of this world, don't you think?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I mean, this world is a dense place. We've got, you know, when I think of this world, it's the yin and the yang symbol. You know, there's the dark and the light, and the dark is in the light and the light is in the dark. And that's the game we're playing down here. And I think the idea is, you know, if I contemplate as we ascend, we step out, I think, of that dark and light experience and have more of the harmony and less of the chaos. But that doesn't mean it's without challenges. I think that this place is just very dense, especially for a lot of the starseeds and the walk-ins and people that are sensitive, the empaths. It can be a very dense place to hang out, but we have to understand that's just how it is in this dimension. It was designed that way, and we're here for a reason. So it's it only goes up from here, though, for the most part. Right. So that's the good news.
I mean, you watch the news and you think the world's getting worse with wars and stuff happening, but yeah, it's up to the starseeds, like all of us that are here, to hold that utopian vision and to hold that frequency and that energy of connectedness and collaboration and unity and love, even when you see the crazy humans doing the opposite around us, right? You see governments doing the opposite. It doesn't really matter what the governments are doing, as long as the people know what they want, right? And then when enough critical mass, when enough of the people know what they want, the governments will change, don't you think?
Yeah, I think it's a perfect example. Well, this world is always going to show us. It reflects the outside, reflects the inside, and that we are creators. So what we create with our thoughts, words, and actions, or what we give permissions to, is what we're going to experience. And of course, there are many challenges in that process, but it is, you know, it's a great place to learn how that works and see, okay, we actually are so much more powerful than we believe that we are. But the key is the collaboration, again, coming together as collective, rather than try it all for me, you know, service to other rather than service to self. And when we come together and collaborate, that's when we get change. And you mentioned the critical mass. When enough of us choose service and love and collaboration, then we change the world.
Hallelujah, darling one. Hallelujah. Yeah, I had a long-held dream last week on the show. I had Neil Donald Walsh on the show. So 25 years ago, his books changed my world, in that as I was reading them, I was remembering my truth when life had been giving me another truth. The books, you know, activated that truth within me. And it was just ecstatic for me to read that stuff. And I met him years ago in Sydney, helped him come out to Sydney and everything, but he became a spiritual rock star. It's funny, this sort of celebrity status, even in the spiritual world, he became unattainable. You couldn't kind of touch him. But anyway, a friend introduced me to him. And the book's message is, you think your life is about you, but it's not. It's about everyone you touch. That's the crux of all the books, 39 of them that he's written. And I think that we have to remember that our life isn't about us. It's not about us. We think it is. We think it's about us, but it's not. It's about all those we touch. So in that, I want to thank you for the work you're doing in the world. Beautiful one. It's just wonderful.
Thank you too, Karen. Thank you for all that you do and the beautiful light that you're sharing with so many people.
And we didn't go into the story of your name, but I heard you tell the story of your name with Alan on his show, New Realities. So if people want to hear why Waxela Sananda is called Waxela Sananda, it's a beautiful story. Go over to Alan's podcast and watch Waxela share her story about your name, because I loved listening to that. I'm like, oh, wow, that's beautiful. And I'll pop the link, as I say, to the Alchemy of Ascension underneath this YouTube and all over Facebook, so that people can sign up for the next week or so to receive it. Thank you again. It's been a joy.
Thank you, Karen. Thank you to everyone watching.